Hi all, this is Vamsi Krishna R, FIDE arbiter and national instructor from World Chess Federation. After a long time again I am coming on to YouTube. Actually I am quite busy with my students. Because of that reason I'm very sorry for keeping you waiting for the next video since my last video. So here I am coming with the next topic. Previously I told you about check and getting out of check. So once you know how to give check and getting out of check, you need to know what is checkmate. So you already know what is checkmate there in that video. In the previous video, you can click the link in the previous videos and then you can watch them if you have any doubts regarding the basics of the topic. And this video is mostly for beginners. And in this thing, I'm going to teach you how to do checkmate in one move. Here you can see there is a rook. There is a rook on f1 and there is a king on f3 and there is a king on h3. Here it is black to play. And if you want to do checkmate to the white, you have to move your rook. You have to move your rook to h1 so that the king will get checkmated in these three squares, because this black king is already controlling the g2 square, g3 and g4. Therefore this rook can control the h2, h3 and h4 so that the king will get checkmated. I think you all understood. Now I am moving the move here, rook to h1. It is a checkmate. Okay, now I am going with the next puzzle. Here in this position, if you want to do checkmate, here you have to go with rook to h5. Rook to h5. If rook to h5, the king can't occupy the square that is already occupied by his own pawn. Therefore, the king can't go to g2. The king can't come to g3 and the king can't go to g4 because the king is already controlling these two squares. Now, the only square that the king can move is either h2 or h4. But it is white to play, therefore the white rook can occupy the h file and do checkmate to the black king on the h file by occupying the entire file with the rook. So here, if we play rook to here, it is a checkmate. Okay, now we will go with the next one. So the same thing here, whenever you see a position like this, you have to firstly know where is the pawn. The pawn is on a2, right? You all might think this might be a check. I'm talking mostly about beginners only. But if you see black pawn starts on 7th rank and comes to the 2nd rank. Therefore, as the pawn cannot move backwards, it is going forward. Therefore, it is not a check, okay? It is going this side. The black pawn is going on to a1. It's not going on to like a3 because it's a black pawn started from the 7th rank. Therefore, now you can see the black king is already controlled these two squares by the king and he can't occupy the same square, but even then the king is controlling that square. So therefore the king is stuck in the back rank, the first rank. The king is stuck in the first rank. Therefore what we can do here, we can simply play our rook to d1 and it's a checkmate in one move. It is a checkmate in one move here. Therefore here the rook is controlling the c1, b1 and a1 squares, and the king is controlling b2 and c2 and a2 also, and the king anyhow can't occupy that square because the king is already controlling and even this pawn is also blocking. So because of that reason it is checkmate. And coming to this position, it is also checkmate, but simply the king is in the corner. If the king is in the corner, we need to control only four squares of the white king. So the four squares are these four squares a1, b1, b2, a2, isn't it? So now the king is already controlling the b1 and b2. Therefore now the rook goes to a3 and it delivers mate to the white king on a1. You got me? Yes, right? So here it's a checkmate. Very good. So now let's go on. Rook to a3 is a checkmate. Now same thing. Whenever you need to see, it is like simple. Rook here, king is controlling these three squares. Now you have to control these three squares of the black king. and it is white to play. Therefore, the rook goes to a8 and it delivers checkmate, isn't it? Okay, now let us go rook e8 to a8 and it is checkmate. So it is mate in 1. Okay, now here. Now is a little bit typical thing. Whenever you want to checkmate someone, first of all you have to observe the king whom we are checkmating. Whom we are checkmating. We have to observe this king only to do checkmate. So if you want to observe this king, we have to observe where he is able to move. And coming to this point, he can't move here, he can't move here. So this black white king cannot move to either g6 or f6 or e6 because the king is there on f7. And he can also not move to the fourth rank because the queen is already controlling the fourth rank. The only rank that the king is safe is on the fifth rank, that too on e5, g5 and f5. Okay, e, f and g5, then the fifth rank the king is safe. So I cannot use the queen to control this because the king can go back to the fourth rank. Therefore, I have to always use a piece that is idle, which is not doing any work. If you find here, this rook over here is idle. Therefore, I can move this rook over here and can do checkmate. Okay, so this is checkmate. Understood? The same way, the queen is controlling here. The rook can move over here to deliver mate. Only 6 squares, right? A1, A2, A3 and B1, B2, B3. B1, B2, B3 are already controlled by the queen. I need to control only A1, A2 and A3. Therefore, now rook to A4 delivers checkmate to the black king on A2. Okay, the same thing. The king is already controlling the G1, G2 and G3 and the rook on G5 goes to H5 and delivers checkmate to the black by the black to the white king on H2 here. Rook to H5 delivers mate. Okay, so as of now we are done rook checkmates, a future rook checkmates. So now we will move to queen checkmates. Okay, so here if you find a position like this, again you have to think. See, previously when we talk about checkmates, I explained you whenever there is a check, we need to first know exactly how to escape from the check. So in the previous video I told you about how to escape from the check, right? So if whenever there is a check, we need to get off from the check either by capturing the attacker or interposing the way of the attack or moving to a safe square. So if I go with this all these three things, here I don't have anyone to guard the check. If I go with queen f8 and even the king has no safe square and the king cannot capture as the king can only occupy one square and he can only attack one square from the square where he is standing. Therefore, he can only attack either h7, g7 or g8. But my queen is there on f8. Therefore, the king cannot capture my queen and it is a check. And this is a checkmate just because there is a pawn on h7. We can also call it as back rank. It's also called it as back rank. One of the types of back rank mate. Okay, now let's go with the next one. In this position, you have to see the king is controlling a crucial square called b7. Whenever you are doing a checkmate with king and queen against a king, you have to be very well aware of stalemate. If you unfortunately drops your queen at queen c7 and it will end up in a stalemate. The king can't go anywhere else and it's a draw. So you cannot afford that. Therefore, you have to be very careful whenever you are moving a queen in this type of positions. Therefore, queen to b7 is checkmate and it's also called as support mate because the king is assisting the queen in delivering the checkmate because king is protecting the queen and the queen is delivering the mate to the white king on a8 by controlling all the squares including the king where he is standing. Therefore, queen is delivering checkmate to the white king from b7 with the support of the black king from c6. I think you all understood, right? So now let's go with another example. Now you will get a clear clarity. Now see the same thing. The king is there on c7 and the white king is there on a7. So if you see properly, if I want to do checkmate, take 5 seconds or pause the video. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, now the queen to b8 is checkmate. Okay, so here we have done few checkmates with a rook and queen, and I will show you bishop checkmates, knight checkmates, and pawn checkmates in the next video. And until then, signing off, Vamsi.